No need to bring it up.
Copy.
Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden.
Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores.
Rolling.
Fratelloni's Hardware and Garden Stores brings you Garage Logic Podcast number 1249, Feb 2024. Mm-hmm. It was 57 degrees on this day in 1981 and 20 below on two occasions, 1941 and 1989. And on this day, I occasionally note these major snowfalls. On this day in 2011, a foot of snow fell upon our sainted heads. Wow. And when I went outside today to discover, of course, the paper wasn't there yet, I smelled a March morning.
Nice.
March morning.
What day in March? It doesn't matter.
About the 27th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hail the flashlight king.
And now,
Thank you
from
for
the
asking.
mayor's office above the boathouse on the east shore of Spoon Lake, it's Garage Logic with Chris Reavers manning Technology Corner, Kenny Olson from the Krabby Coffee Shop, John Haidt in the newsroom, and of course, the Rookie. Here is your flashlight king, fireworks commissioner, and the keeper of common sense, your mayor, Joe Souchere.
What's the word for when I've been proven correctly? It's not vilified.
Validated.
Verified.
I've been okay.
No, it's not because if he was wrong and he's being corrected.
Well, it's been my use of when I was telling you to call Precision Garage Door and put their number in your telephone closet, I was poo-pooed. But Brian Gullickson just emailed me a picture and the note, I attended my first Wild game at the XL Energy Center this past weekend. No wonder they want to renovate this place. The place is so old it has a telephone closet of which I've attached a photo. There it is. Telephone closet right there in the XL Energy Center.
Wow.
I've been vindicated.
Vindicated.
That's the word I wanted.
There
I knew
you
it was
go.
a V word.
Remedied? No.
No, vindicated, Matt. We're done looking.
I don't see it here.
Telephone closet. Isn't that something? I had no idea.
Was that just a fancy word for another room for the Wild Press Corps?
What
Did you put that up there yourself?
that game?
10-7.
I have never seen that, and I've seen a lot of hockey games. I have never seen 7 goals in a third period. I've never seen 2 hat tricks. I've never seen anything like it. It was just wonderful.
2 minutes. What was it? 2 minutes in, we had scored 3 goals. If I remember right,
The third grade.
into the third.
The third period was very active.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
7 goals scored in the third period.
Well, I think we were down, if I remember right, 5-3, and I turn it on and I put the volume really low because I know it's going to be the typical disappointment. And then I think we saw history being made.
Well, you did. From a franchise standpoint, much of that was historic.
I have never seen anything like that personally, Joe. I will never forget yesterday, ever.
Well, I didn't see it because instead of being a non-productive member of society, just sucking off the government's teat at home and doing nothing, I was at work.
Wow.
How many insane websites have you read today in order to do show prep? You want to talk about who's more put out? I'm way more put out than you'll ever be.
I drudged. I
think-
TwinCities.com, and I did Star Tribune it.
I think it's wearing on Kenny's mind, to be truthful, at this
Yeah, it
point.
is.
The trouble is,
What's the trouble?
Now that we've identified the problem in the country, we can't help but see it. That's the problem. And I have a recommendation for GLers who rely most principally on the Star Tribune and the Pioneer Press for their news. You're missing the boat if you don't also check out every day the Center of the American Experiment and Alpha News. They are reporting the things, and they're all legitimate what they're reporting. They're reporting what you're not going to find in the daily newspapers. You're just not going to find it.
And then throw in Sahan Journal, The Hill, the Powerline Blog, the Drudge Report, the American Thinker, the Wall Street Journal, the St. Paul Paper, the Star Tribune. And if you do that every day,
you'll find yourself, you'll be a jerk like I am right now.
Yeah,
just
right.
an absolute cretin that's impossible to work with.
What do you mean by right now?
You know, yesterday you were wondering,
yes.
you were wondering if a school would punish a student who might intervene to break up a fight.
Yeah.
Somebody asked that question, either Kenny or John, would the student be punished? And I got a note from Josh who writes, hey, you asked on the podcast if a student could break up a fight and not get in trouble. We are in southeast Minnesota, and about 2 weeks ago, a fight started in my son's middle school Phi Ed class, and he stepped in and broke it up. The next day, he was called into the vice principal's office. She saw everything on the video and thanked him for stepping in.
Oh, wow.
P.S. This same 7th grader goes to sleep every night to Garage Logic.
We put him to sleep?
Well, no, I think that means that's his
last comment or
there
his
you
thought.
are.
Okay.
There you are.
Got it now.
That's what we need. More people like that.
And then just leave it on so we get the complete download.
Well, you need more people like the student, and you need more people like that principal. Who said, thanks, kid. Many emailers are wondering, we're going to play whataboutism, but I think it's deservedly so for just a moment. Many emailers are playing whataboutism. When do the riots start? When do we burn down Target in Burnsville?
What's the vibe?
Hail the Flashlight King.
Hail you.
Dale wants to know, I think I've missed an announcement. When and where is the riot? Is CNN in town? I don't see anything about 3 white civil servants being killed by a black guy on their homepage. Are there a bunch of white people from Chicago and New York in cars with no license plates moving into Burnsville? Is the KKK coming to town to stir up the crowd? Will we be burning down the victims' neighborhoods, maybe the shooter's place of employment? The answer is no, of course. If this state can't vote this left-wing radicals out of office, it's time to leave it and allow Canada to absorb us. All right. And Steve wants to know, in May of June of 2020, I learned that all Minneapolis police hate black people. The police chief and mayor in charge were not at fault, though. They were in charge of lots of racists. I learned that white people are racist even if they don't know it. Now a black guy kills 2 white cops and a white paramedic. Do black people hate all white people? Are black men racist even if they don't know it? How come Target isn't getting looted? Yeah, we can play that whataboutism. Sometimes you have to play whataboutism. There is something to be said about this dichotomy. And that is, of course, all black people don't hate white people. That's silly. But what needs to be observed is that, no, there won't be any burning. There won't be any looting. There won't be any destruction of small businesses. There won't be any of that, because the oppressors don't react that way. It's the oppressed who react that way.
Okay.
And I don't know how it could ever be spun that this fellow who shot the coppers and the paramedic, I'm sure it could be spun that he's an oppressed person, but it will be very hard to spin the fact that he was a decent human being.
And not that I'm disagreeing with you, but there is one major difference, though, right, between this story and all the other previous ones. The bad guy's dead.
Right. Right. And it's a hard story to sort out. We're giving this one 72 hours, if not more. It's a hard story to sort out. But why was the 911 call made in the first place? Is that germane to our understanding of this situation? Do we need to know why the 911 call was made in the first place for a domestic problem?
It does help paint the picture of the type of person you were dealing with, most likely.
And then is it germane to wonder about the I come up with at least 3 moms for the combined 7 kids. Is that germane for me to wonder about? Probably not. It doesn't mean much now to the widow and the kids of the dead cops.
True.
I was wondering that. And then why are our laws that we have plenty of so incapable of preventing this when this was a fellow not allowed to own guns? I guess I'm being naive. Unless you put a tail on him 24 hours a day, year after year, there's a million ways he can go get a gun without law enforcement knowing about it.
And I find it interesting that some people on the left are using that as an excuse to say we need to ban all guns. Like that won't turn us into Chicago.
No, what you need to do on the left, as long as you're the ones in control, is you need to create tougher laws. If the first time, what's his name? Gooden. What's his first name?
Shannon.
If the first time Shannon Gooden got in trouble with a gun, if he had received a 5-year jail sentence with no parole, it's unlikely he would be committing future gun crimes. Why don't you get tough on the people who wrongly use guns? I don't need you to take mine. I'm honest. But you need to crack down if somebody's using a gun illegally, put them in jail for 10 years.
Okay.
And you don't get out.
And that's what they're trying to do with the latest bill that's being introduced right now. They're going to take mine away.
Which makes no sense. There's quite a few interesting bills, isn't there?
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
They raced to the finish line here.
They're really...
Let's go.
Well, at the beginning of the session, they throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But again, you're not going to hear about these bills in the Pioneer Press or the Star Tribune. These particular bills I've been made aware of by reading the Center of the American Experiment today, and everybody can go to their website every day. It's fantastic. Or Alpha News or Sahan Journal. You can find these things. For example, DFL senators are pushing a bill to regulate painters.
Painters?
All right.
To do what?
And this is by John Phelan of the American Experiment. Last week, I released my new policy briefing, Counteracting Regulatory Burdens, which calls for state policymakers to enact a pay-as-you-go provision whereby new regulatory requirements or costs must be offset by eliminating old ones, and adopt sunset provisions for state regulations. I think John was suggesting, okay, every time you come up with a new regulation, you have to get rid of an old one. It's a great idea. Right. They won't do that.
Right.
And as if to illustrate the need for that measure, along comes Senate File 3554. Senate File 3554, sponsored by Senators McEwen, DFL, Seeberger, DFL, and Hoffman, DFL, would much more, listen, GLers, this affects you, would much more tightly regulate not only the sale of paint, but also who could use the paint. Here are some highlights of the bill. The sale of solvent-based paint materials is restricted to those people licensed under Section 326B.61. The restriction under this paragraph excludes sales of solvent-based paint materials sold in containers that are a gallon or less in volume and household spray paints dispensed from an aerosol can. For purposes of this section, solvent-based paint materials means non-waterborne paint and paint thinners. Unlicensed individuals means an individual who is not licensed by the commissioner to perform painting work. An unlicensed individual shall not perform painting work required to be performed by a licensed individual unless the individual is first registered with the department as an unlicensed individual. Therefore, an unlicensed individual shall not perform painting work required to be performed by a licensed individual unless the work is performed under the direct supervision of an individual actually licensed to perform such work. The licensed individual and unlicensed individual must be employed by the same employer. licensed individuals shall not permit unlicensed individuals to perform painting work except under the direct supervision of an individual actually licensed. Unlicensed individuals shall not supervise the performance of painting work or make assignments of painting work to unlicensed individuals. It's interesting to note that Aaron Murphy is the Senate Majority Leader.
Mm-hmm.
Her husband is a guy named Joe Murphy. He's a very successful and very talented professional painter. I'm not suggesting this is Aaron's idea.
Purely a coincidence.
I'm just saying it's very ironic
Wow.
that the Senate Majority Leader is Aaron Murphy, whose husband Joe, who I know well, I've hired him.
Okay.
Is a very talented professional painter. Worked with a guy named Mike Hughes. Hughes and Murphy. Hughes is retired. Murph is still painting.
So does this bill mean I can't paint my house? Because it says something about restricting unless you can't buy more than a gallon of this paint. You can buy a gallon of paint or less, or you can buy anything in a spray can.
It sounds to me like the lowly citizen would be limited to buying small cans of paint.
In the name of what?
In the name of the legislature acting not for the citizens of Minnesota, but acting on behalf of unions.
Who decided that
So
we need to tell this is a
and it just covers solvent-based paint materials. Does that mean paint that won't be washed out in water when I'm at the end of the day? I can't clean my brushes.
Latex is not solvent-based, is it?
So it just covers oil-based.
Apparently. I wish they would have used the term oil-based. You know what that means? Varnishing. Varnishing is a solvent-based material.
You see yourself as a champion varnisher, don't you?
I am a champion
varnisher.
varnisher.
I can't argue
which is
that.
very unusual given my personality.
True.
There's a certain
therapeutic.
art to it.
It's therapeutic for him.
Each contract, and then we get into the insurance part. There's absolutely no need for this bill whatsoever. It is this is John Phelan writing. It is regulation for the sake of regulations, nothing more. This, though, is what too many state policymakers live for, and it is why Minnesota needs the protection of the measures set out in our new policy briefing, that being a Center of American Experiment policy briefing, saying if you're introducing a new regulation, you must demonstrate the elimination of an existing regulation.
That means you can't paint that Triumph at home. You can't go buy a gallon or two of what would it be, Ferrari red, and paint that Triumph of yours. I can't paint that Minneapolis Moline of mine.
That's what it sounds like.
The 71 F100, whatever it might be, that requires more than a gallon.
The restriction under this paragraph excludes, meaning you don't have to count this, sales of solvent-based paint materials sold in containers that are a gallon or less. In other words, I guess if I want to paint my porch with a solvent-based paint, I just have to keep running back to the store and buying it in quart cans.
Yeah.
What the hell? I thought you were worried about climate change. I'm going to be in my car more often, you idiots.
What about, we've both used it, stripper, that stuff where you have to put on a rubber suit
Where
to
it starts
use
to bubble?
Yeah, but
it burns into your skin.
Yeah, but you can get that in small cans, Kenny.
By the way, it's not
it's
not a Porsche, it's a Lamborghini.
Right.
It's a Lambo.
Tell me I'm reading that wrong.
I think that's what it says.
The
Joe.
restriction under this paragraph. Well, let me start the paragraph over. The sale of solvent-based paint materials is restricted under this bill to those persons licensed under Section 326B.61. In other words, professional painters. The restriction under the paragraph excludes, meaning I come into the picture now as a Joe civilian. It excludes sales of solid-based paint materials sold in containers that are a gallon or less and household spray paints dispensed in the form of an aerosol can.
You know our guy Mark, the Iron Range, that did the painting for Derek, he's out of business because he does all hand lettering.
Look up State Senator McEwen, McEwen, because we're not getting their first names here. McEwen, look up Seeberger, Seeberger, and look up Hoffman, just what it sounds like. These are all DFL senators. Who are you people? And what in God's name is compelling you to take such ridiculous, unnecessary action? What in God's name is this?
I've got John Hoffman up. He's 34.
Where's he from?
District map. Hold on. Stay with me. It's loading. Where the hell is this?
He lives in Champlin.
Thank you, John.
Yep.
Is he an eco freak? What is the environment behind this? Do they actually think me popping the lid on a gallon of paint is going to be detrimental to what?
Talk me off the ledge here.
I mean, what is wrong with you people? And why do you want to serve? Don't you want to serve the people of Minnesota? Is that quaint idea just gone now?
Jen McEwen.
Yeah.
Born in Carbondale, Illinois, lives in Duluth.
She's a Duluther, huh?
It's a female.
Yeah, I know. I said she's a Duluther, huh?
I thought you said he, but that's okay. Lives in Duluth. She earned a BA from the University of Maine and a JD from Hamlin School of Law. Her experience includes working as an attorney. She served as the board president of the Damiano Center. Doesn't say anything.
And then what about the other fruitcake, Seeberger?
John Hoffman, what do you do when you're a liberal and you're born in Casper, Wyoming?
Yeah.
You move to Minnesota.
I guess you move to Minnesota if you're born in Illinois, too. There are a lot of legislators who are not from Minnesota.
You don't tell me.
Judy Seeberger is from Afton.
Okay. What's her deal?
She's part of the Commerce and Consumer Protection Committee. She's the vice chair. Nothing on environment. The other two both belong to environment committees in the legislature.
Mm-hmm. Well, GLers, if this passes, you're being told you can't go to Fratelloni's and buy a gallon of paint. You can go to Fratelloni's and buy smaller cans.
I wonder
she
if
earned a
he's aware of
bachelor's degree from the University of Minnesota Duluth in '91, law degree from Boston University School of Law.
Who's this, McEwen?
This is still Judy Seeberger. Boston University School of Law in '96, and a graduate from your favorite former university, Hamlin, in 2016.
That's not even a college anymore.
Right.
Let me ask you something, Joe. This seems like it's newsworthy. This and the electrical bill and the gun bill.
Didn't even get to the electrical bill yet, Kenny. I'm going to take your blood pressure on another trip.
Why don't the local rags cover this? How come I'm not seeing this on the TV news?
I think this might fall under the heading of it's early in the session and they are feverishly writing as many bills as possible, throwing them at the wall, literally, and seeing throwing them at the wall and seeing what will stick.
Well, Jen's next one, or this Seeberg.
I know.
The grounds for reasonable force in schools, defining duties, establish minimum training requirements. That's just fresh out of the hopper.
Right. What that